Hello and welcome to In Their 20s, a podcast with the best advice. I'm your host, Landon Campbell, and today we spoke with Angel Onuoha, who is the CEO and co-founder of BLK Capital Management, which is a 100% Black-owned and student-run hedge fund that focuses on educating their members by exposing them to the field of active investment management. I was very excited for this interview going into it because we spoke about a subject matter that's very important to me, which is closing the racial wealth gap. From about 2016 to 2020, only 1% of venture capital funding went to Black-founded companies. That's a number that should shock you. And yes, it's getting better, but we still have a long ways to go. Angel is very educated about this field, the industry. He understands financial services. He understands networking. He understands a lot. So we're going to dive in and hear Angel's best advice for people in their 20s. So first things first, I think the best place to start is, just give people a little further background about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Sure, I'd love to. So my name is Angel Onuoha. I recently just graduated from Harvard. I studied economics with a minor in computer science. And I'm actually working for an internship right now in New York, but I'm joining Google full-time as an associate product manager. So that's sort of what I am at sort of like a professional view. Do you want me to dive a little bit more into sort of my personal background as well?
No, I think that's fine because we're going to hop right to BLK Capital Management, man. And something
Okay.
I'm really excited to hear about. I do some work also within VC. I work for an organization called Black Venture Capital Consortium. I've been following what you're doing personally, for a few years now. There are a few students actually at DePaul that are affiliated with the program and everything that you've built. So just really excited to dive in. So just to give the audience some background, and obviously you're going to take the stage, but BLK Capital Management, you started this your freshman year. It's a nonprofit hedge fund. Did you know a lot about hedge fund before creating this? And what really motivated you to start something this powerful?
I didn't know anything about hedge fund before I started this. And I think that's one of the typical things that I've seen with a lot of people who I know who have started organizations. They aren't necessarily the subject matter experts or anything, but it's really just about your ability to learn and be humble that you don't know anything and honest about that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what inspired me to start that, when I came into college, I very much thought that I was going to go into finance, and I really wanted to do the investment banking private equity route. But it's pretty difficult when you don't see that many people ahead of you that look like you that are also doing those things. And so for myself, when I came onto campus, I met a few of the older classmen who were some of the Black men on campus. And I noticed that they were doing a lot of these jobs, especially in the investment banking side of things. And so they were great mentors to me, but it was very much because I was proactive about it. I made sure to reach out to them, to have them help me with interviews and all of these different types of things. And then when I got into my actual job, my first internship on Wall Street, I realized there was not that many Black people in the actual industry that were working in these jobs as well. And so it was sort of that whole culmination of, for one, feeling like there was a lack of representation on the actual job and not seeing that many Black people when I was going to work on a day-to-day basis. And then two, seeing that on campus as well and wanting to create a community where Black people could come, be interested in finance, and then already have a set network of people that they can ask any types of questions with, get help on resume things, just little things like that. But then also learning to actually invest and, the importance of saving, investing, and also, sort of that pre-professional aspect. And so that was basically the founding of the organization, the motivation behind it.
I think that's so powerful, and something that really stood out to me was that you just weren't seeing so many people that looked like you in this field. That's one of the main reasons I started this podcast. In order to become successful, you need to see success, and it helps so much to either have a mentor that looks like you, that's going to give you the time, but then also just be able to see people that have done amazing things in the field. You don't even need to have a personal connection with them, but it just really is such an honor and really great to see someone like that in whatever industry you're in. And I know that the financial services market, VC, hedge funds, it was really lacking in that space. So now just breaking down the specific reach that you guys have had, I'd love to hear about how many students through the creation of BLK Capital Management have you been able to impact, work with, how many schools, anything to really help paint a further picture to the audience.
Absolutely. The impact that we've made has been absolutely incredible. And I think it's something that motivates both myself and everybody who continues to run the program. And so over the past 3 to 4 years, I think it's coming up on 4 years this summer, actually, we have expanded to starting with around 6 schools to over 65 nationwide. And so we partner with firms on Wall Street, and we've had over 150 students during that time sort of get jobs at some of the firms that we partner with. And so that's sort of like, some of the early impact that we've made. But I think especially with the past few years, we've grown a lot, and we're going to see sort of a lot more people matriculating into jobs that we are interested in. And that we partner with.
And that's the true magic of it. You are impacting the lives of students now, getting them set on the path into financial services, hedge funds. And now, you're probably already seeing the impact, further impact when these guys are getting jobs and when these people are, getting connected with these larger companies. But you're only going to continue to see that more and more now into the future. So I bet that's
It's been
been really
amazing
great.
as well because we actually have a decent amount of students who don't necessarily go into finance. And so what we've
Wow.
seen is that, yeah, and so what we've seen is that not a lot, but what we've seen is that a few students will come through our program just to get the financial literacy aspect
Mm.
of it, because they can use those skills to basically work any job that they want. And those skills are going to be important for, their own personal investing or their own, understanding of saving and what's happening in the market. So I think those are just general skills and knowledge that all people should be having as they, enter into the workforce.
No, couldn't agree more. So looking at some of the companies that students have gone into working for, students from BLK Capital Management, what have you seen?
Which types of
Oh,
companies?
yes. Which types of companies?
Oh, absolutely. So most of them are on Wall Street. And so we have over 40 sponsors by now. I think it's
Wow.
30 to 40 sponsors. And those are just different firms like Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Blackstone, all those firms. And then we have also signed on a few different consulting firms that people have started to show interest in. And so we recently signed on McKinsey in this last year. And then we just have basically a whole suite of companies and organizations.
Got it. So something that I really respect about you also, and you probably hear this a bunch, I just see clear ownership mindset, entrepreneurial spirit. Not only were you going to one of the most prestigious schools in the country, earning your degree, but you developed this company. And not only were you developing this company, but you were also making connections to further your professional track. So let's talk about work-life balance. Like, how have you personally been able to balance all of these things, focus on what you need to focus on, and overall provide value as well?
That's a really great question. And I think one thing that I always hear, people will typically ask me things like this. And I often think that there's some sort of either mentality or something holding people back into starting new things because either one, they don't feel like they have enough time, or two, they might not feel like they have, the routine or the knowledge or anything to get started. But I think the biggest advice I have on that part is it doesn't necessarily matter what your routine is, as long as you just start whatever you plan on actually starting. I think that can take you so much further. And so for myself, I've never necessarily had a set routine. Sometimes I'll go through periods where I wake up very early around 5 a.m., work out, and then have a very strict routine in terms of doing homework, studying, and running businesses. And sometimes, I'll stay up until 4 a.m. doing work, and then I won't wake up until 12 p.m. and I'll just sort of do the whole thing, right? And so I don't necessarily have a formula in terms of this is what I spend my time doing on a day-to-day basis. This is how I, dedicate my time to schoolwork versus extracurricular work. It's more so just there are things that need to get done, and I'm surely going to get them done by the end of the week or the end of the day. And however you can fit that in, I definitely think that's sort of like how I live my life, I'd say.
Bro, that's dope. I love that because purely it's just execution is key. I think a lot of times we read these trending articles. This is Mark Cuban's daily schedule that he sticks to every single day, or like Robert Downey Jr., or like whoever it might be. But it's really reassuring to hear that, like, you have your responsibilities. You know what you have to do every single day. Some days are going to look different, but bottom line, you're doing it. So I think that's super powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think, like you were saying before, I just think that different routines work differently for different people because some people work very good when they have a long block of time where they can really focus on something, and some people might work better in hour increments and then taking small breaks. So I try to steer away from telling anybody that one thing is better than the other. I just think it really depends on personality.
Okay. So second to last question I have for you is just about general networking best practices, things that you have learned. You have had to create partnerships for BLK Capital Management. You have gotten obviously opportunities with Google, and I know that you've worked on other startups as well. So, you're really connected. You've worked alongside so many great people. So you probably really mastered networking. I think the word actually is preternatural when you do something so often, you have that preternatural sense of networking. So what have you learned about networking? And for anybody in their 20s or even younger or older, what can they really learn from you with networking?
This is a really good question as well. I think for networking on my side of things, one thing that I've realized, and I actually didn't realize this until I looked back, is that when you provide a lot of value for people, they're very happy and willing to provide value for you as well. And I think that is like what the essential idea of networking is, right? Like you are, speaking with somebody because you hope to get something out of that relationship, and the same thing for you. And so I think for myself, because I've always been somebody who looks to provide value to people first. So for example, with BLK Capital Management, the value that we're providing students is education, possibly a job or an internship opportunity, all these different types of things that I feel like through every sort of company I've created or every program or fellowship that I've started, I've always been providing a lot of value to people. And so I think oftentimes when I do need something, or oftentimes when an opportunity comes up for people to help me, they're very willing and they're sort of like, pushing to do it. And so I would say that the big thing that I've learned about networking is just make sure to, be as helpful as you can to people at all times, even when you don't expect anything in return, because you never know what types of dividends that can have for you.
100%. I think a lot of times people are only focused on like, what can I get from this? What can I get from this? That's a little too transactional. I understand like sometimes just in the business world, things do need to happen, sure. But the root of networking is relationship building. It's a two-way street. Value is a two-way street. So you always need to go into situations thinking like, okay, I need this, but what can I give? What can I deliver? And that's only going to incentivize that other person to give you more because they know that they're going to get something big in return.
Yeah, and oftentimes you won't get anything back in return, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think people should just be happy with sort of helping other people.
That's also very
If I
true.
know, if I know that my friend is a software engineer and I see a software engineering opportunity or fellowship come up, I'm going to send it to him, and that could be
Yes.
considered networking technically, because when something comes up for him and he knows I'm interested in it, he'll probably think of me next time, right? And so it's just little things like that that I think are so extremely important.
I think you touched on a great point with just general community as well. I want to see people, especially people that look like me, succeed. So, I mean, sometimes you do need to give a helping hand, give suggestions here and there. We should all want to see each other do really well. So I think that, really powerful as well. So my final question for you, Angel, title of a very popular Drake song, What's Next? So clearly you've done all these amazing like that. Clearly you've done all these amazing things, but I mean, I just know since speaking with you, clearly you're hungry for more. I mean, you have accomplished so much, but what's next? So what's next for BLK Capital Management? What's next for your career? I know you're starting a role at Google. What are you excited for at Google? And, where do you see yourself in 10-ish years, we can say?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different things on there that I'll address. So I'll first start with some of the companies. So BLK Capital Management, what's next? There's a lot on that plate. I think one of the big things that we're looking at now is really growing out an alumni network. When we started 4 years ago, it was obviously just a bunch of students, and now those students are beginning to graduate and join into roles. And especially some of those students are joining into some more leadership roles as they're a couple more years out. And so what we're seeing now is we're trying to create good connections between the undergraduate students in our organization and the graduate students, and just for different networking opportunities, job opportunities, and just general advice giving and things like that. And then obviously we're looking to always partner with more like different companies and expose our students to different facets of finance. And so I think those are things that are always in the pipeline. So that's BLK Capital Management. Google, I'm extremely excited because it will be one of my first experience working in a big tech firm, and also one of my first experiences doing product management formally. I think especially for the APM program, it's a lot of community there. And so I'm really excited about actually just meeting people, sort of learning how the best, one of the best tech companies in the world has done it and how they launch products. what actually goes into those decision-making factors. And then I'm hoping to sort of in the long-term future for myself, take all of those skills and be an entrepreneur myself. And so that sort of leads me into the last part, which is what's next for me. And what's next is Africa. So I'm hoping to actually move to Nigeria and to start a business there. I'm
Wow.
very passionate about the fintech space out there. And so I think that's something that's in my very, very near future.
That's dope, man. You're going to make it happen. I'm so excited to be able to watch. So congratulations on all that. Really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for sharing just amazing advice on the show. I know our viewers are really going to love this.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a very wonderful interview. And if anybody here wants to reach out to me for any reason, I think Instagram or Twitter or any social media is probably the best. I'm just at Angel Noha 7. So yeah, thank you so much.
Of course, man.